Claressa Shields is one of the greatest boxers who has ever lived, and by the time this video ends, that statement is going to feel more painful than ever. Because right now, the two-time Olympic gold medalist is being publicly dismantled. Not by a rival in the ring, not by a hater in the comments, but by the one man who was supposed to be standing in her corner. Papoose. Yes, her own man. And what he just did on the internet is being called the loudest, most catastrophic self-inflicted drag of the entire year, and I am not exaggerating that even a little bit. Before we go any deeper, I hope every single one of you watching is doing well today, because for the reckless grandstanding we are about to unpack, and for the growing pile of receipts against a champion who cannot stop reaching for someone else's crown, this one is going to be a wild ride. Do me a favor and slam that like button, really smash it, because I want the algorithm to feel that we are all locked in together on this. Send a message. And also, if you have not already, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because I have a follow-up video already cooking that you are not going to want to miss. Alright, lock in. Because the story we are about to walk through is the kind of drag that money cannot fix, that PR cannot spin, and that a boxing belt cannot rescue. It all snapped open when Papoose, trying to ride for his girl the way any good man should, posted online that Claressa Shields deserved the BET award over Aya Wilson. He thought he was defending her. He thought he was doing his job. But instead, that one post cracked open every single door that Claressa Shields has been trying to keep shut for the last 2 years. And the internet came pouring right through. Because the very second Papoose hit send, funky Dineva pounced. On his live from June 30th, Dineva peeled Claressa Shields apart layer by layer, and the clip has not stopped multiplying since. Now hear this closely because it matters. When your own man's defense becomes the doorway your enemies walk through to drag you, that is not bad luck. That is not a coincidence. That is what happens when a public figure has been rejecting the mirror the world keeps holding up to her. And the mirror finally cracks. Papoose wanted the timeline talking about Claressa Shields the boxer. Instead, he handed the whole timeline permission to talk about Claressa Shields the person. And here is the kicker, the person right now is not winning that fight. Dineva's central thesis was surgical. He said the reason the general public is not sharing Papoose's outrage over Claressa Shields losing that BET award is because the general public simply does not care what Claressa Shields wins or loses. Not because she is not talented. Not because she is not decorated. But because, and these are his words, not mine, Claressa Shields is hard to like. And then he tied it to a life lesson that hit harder than any of her jabs ever did. Being liked, Dineva said, will carry you further than being qualified ever will. People move mountains for people they enjoy being around. People bend rules and rewrite requirements and overlook the messy parts for the ones they like. And they will let a genius rot in the corner if that genius makes them uncomfortable. Now let me keep it real for a second because there is truth in that. There is real, unshakable truth in that. But here is what that framing quietly erases. Claressa Shields is a two-time Olympic gold medalist. She is undefeated across 2 weight classes. She is one of the most decorated fighters, male or female, on the planet right now. You can be hard to like and still be the greatest to ever pull on a pair of gloves. Both things can sit at the same table and Dineva knows it. But we are not here to be fair to Claressa Shields tonight. We are here to autopsy how she lost the public. And the answer is written all over Papoose's timeline. Now, Dineva did cross a line, and I have to say it. He turned around and started attacking Claressa Shields on the level of her appearance. He said she is chasing an Instagram baddie look that is not authentic to her. He called her wardrobe tacky. He said she is rough and rugged. He said she lacks femininity. And that is where I have to step in and be honest with all of you. Tearing apart a grown woman's face, her body, her presentation, and her femininity is not commentary. That is just bullying dressed up in a suit. You can critique someone's choices without ripping into their appearance, and Dineva blew that line straight through. It tells on him more than it tells on her. But, and this is the part one cannot ignore, Dineva was dead right on the biggest, uncomfortable truth of the entire situation. He admitted the double standard out loud. He said men in boxing get grace. Men in boxing can be arrogant, can be disrespectful, can act a full-blown fool in public and still land the awards, still get the endorsements, still get the support. Women in boxing, and especially black women in boxing, have to be twice as polished and work 3 times as hard just to get half the shine. That is not just a Claressa Shields problem. That is every office in America. That is every industry, every stage, every arena. A man can be a mess and still get promoted. A woman has to be flawless just to be considered. On that point, we are standing right next to Dineva. Facts are facts. Now here is where the drag turned into a full-scale operation. Dineva said Claressa Shields' biggest strategic mistake was going after Laila Ali. Laila Ali, the gold standard of women's boxing. Grace, legacy, family name, corporate connections. A whole brand that opens doors most fighters do not even know exist. And Dineva dropped the killer line that has been echoing across the internet ever since. He said Laila could have put Claressa Shields in rooms with real brands. The kind of rooms where you do not have to keep publicly thanking Wynn Records for keeping the lights on. That was a scalpel. Because here is the receipt everyone quietly noticed. Claressa Shields keeps talking about her brand potential, her endorsement runway, her value in the marketplace. But look at the actual portfolio. Where are the deals? Where are the campaigns? Where are the major partnerships that a two-time Olympic gold medalist should be swimming in? They are not there. And burning the one bridge, Laila Ali, that could have been the connector to those rooms is exactly the kind of decision that people call self-sabotage. She closed her own door with her own two hands. Now understand this simply, Papoose was not moving like this when he was married to Remy Ma. He was quiet. He was steady. He was respected across the culture. He was the guy every rapper's wife pointed to as the example. Something changed. And whether it changed him or he changed it, the timeline is dragging him for it every day. And here is the part that even Dineva, even the mainstream commentary shows, even the boxing podcasts, even the neutral observers all agree on. It is the single biggest drag magnet Claressa Shields has been dragging behind her for 2 years. The fact that this whole relationship went public while Papoose was still legally married. That is why the labels never stop. Mistress, entanglement, side chick, pick me. The internet has been calling her every single one of those things for 2 years straight. And every time she posts, the labels come back like the tide. Because look, and this is the blunt reality nobody in her camp wants to say out loud. Look at where careers built on that foundation tend to end up, especially in this community. The audience simply is not going to uplift that story. It is a wall. And every time Papoose opens his mouth to defend her, he does not knock the wall down. He adds another brick. And it did not stop with Dineva. Because once the door was open, the whole yard came running through. Cris Cyborg, one of the most dangerous names in combat sports on the planet, jumped on her platform and dropped the line that turned this from a drag into a full-blown feeding frenzy. She said it is duck hunting season on Claressa Shields. Duck hunting season. Read that back one more time and let it sit. That is not a random comedian. That is not a gossip blog. That is a professional fighter with real hands and a real record signaling to every other name in combat sports that Claressa Shields is now, publicly, an open target. And once a fighter of that caliber gives the community permission to feast, every level of the food chain follows. Boxing podcasts started running highlight reels. Combat sports Twitter started stitching clips. TikTok started building whole subgenres of Claressa Shields reaction content. And every single one of those creators is not building their content off her wins. They are building it off her losses at the microphone. That is the entire economy that Papoose accidentally birthed with one badly timed post. And now for the sharpest observation Dineva made, and honestly the one I cannot argue with even if I wanted to. He said Claressa Shields keeps trying to wear everybody else's crown. Somebody is a baddie? She wants that lane. Somebody is a devoted wife? She wants that lane. Somebody is a rapper? She wants that lane. Somebody is a fashion girl? She wants that lane too. And every lane she reaches for pulls her further and further away from the one lane she already owns outright. Look at Beyoncé. Beyoncé is untouchable partly because Beyoncé is a mystery. Beyoncé gives the internet almost nothing, so the internet has almost nothing to drag. Claressa Shields gives the internet everything, and the internet feasts on all of it. And here is the truth in the simplest possible language: your crown is boxing. That is the crown. That is the throne. You are a two-time Olympic gold medalist. Why are you reaching for costume jewelry when the real crown on your head is solid gold? Now let me pull the camera back for a second because this is bigger than one BET award, and it is bigger than one Papoose post. This is about a pattern of behavior that has been building for 2 full years, and Dineva is only the loudest voice pointing at it. Think about the sequence. Claressa Shields walks past Laila Ali and calls her out. Fine, trash talk is part of boxing. But then she walks past Savannah Marshall in a way most in the community said was disrespectful. Then she walks past the WNBA. Then she walks past female MMA. Then she walks past comparisons to Serena Williams. Then she walks past Cardi B when it came to influence and reach. Every single one of those women is at the top of her own mountain. And Claressa Shields keeps climbing up somebody else's mountain instead of decorating her own. That is what a pattern looks like. That is what a habit looks like. And that is what an audience takes note of every single time it happens. Here is where the whole thing folds in on itself. Because Dineva did skip one uncomfortable fact, and I am going to say it since he did not. Aya Wilson genuinely, absolutely, undeniably earned that BET award. She had the WNBA MVP season. She had the championship. She had the cultural moment. She had every single credential that award was designed to honor. And that is not the first time either. This is the second year in a row that Papoose and Claressa Shields have publicly complained about a black woman who legitimately, on merit, won an award over her. Once is a moment. Twice is a pattern. 3 times will be a brand. And nobody survives the third one. Now let me talk about Wynn Records for a second, because this piece of the puzzle deserves way more attention than it is getting. Wynn Records is Papoose's label. Wynn Records is where Claressa Shields is signed for her music career. Which means Claressa Shields is not just dating a man from that label. She is a business partner inside that label. And that changes everything about how the industry sees her. Because when you look at the artists that Wynn Records has attempted to launch, and you look at the commercial results, the picture is not what the marketing says it is. Every time Claressa Shields drops a track, the reception is, at best, polite. At worst, it becomes another cycle of jokes. And she keeps returning to the microphone. She keeps returning to the studio. She keeps demanding the world take her music seriously. And the world, the same world that will absolutely, without question, take her seriously as a fighter, keeps quietly declining that particular assignment. Now compare that to the alternate timeline where Claressa Shields had shaken Laila Ali's hand instead of dragging her name. She would have been signed to a fashion house right now. She would have been on the cover of magazines. She would have had a docuseries. She would have had a shoe deal. She would have had all of the things the mainstream culture line item reserves for legacy champions with polished public images. Instead, she got the Wynn Records lifestyle. And there is a giant, undeniable difference between the two paths, and every person in the industry can see it clearly. So let me stack the receipts for you. Papoose's post backfired. Dineva called Claressa Shields hard to like. Dineva threw some cheap shots on her appearance that I will not co-sign. Dineva told a hard truth about the double standard that women fighters face. Dineva exposed the Laila Ali misstep. Dineva pointed at the empty brand talk. Dineva named the marriage problem. And Dineva crowned her with the only line that really needed to be said. Your crown is boxing. Cris Cyborg turned it into duck hunting season. Combat Sports Twitter picked up the megaphone. And Aya Wilson earned that award. Period. Every single one of those receipts is publicly timestamped. Every single one is verifiable. And every single one adds up to the same conclusion. Claressa Shields is not losing this because the world does not respect her boxing. She is losing this because she keeps demanding the world respect everything else too. Now listen close because this is why it matters. Sometimes you lose your own crown the second you start reaching for everybody else's. That is the lesson. That is the whole autopsy. And it is a lesson every single one of us watching this video can apply. Because I know all of you know somebody exactly like this. Somebody wildly talented. Somebody with a gift the world should be lining up to celebrate. But they keep chasing the wrong lane. They keep trying to be somebody they were not built to be. And they keep bleeding out on the timeline while the crown they were born to wear collects dust in the closet. Drop that story in the comments. Tell me who you know that fits this description. Because I bet every single one of you has a name in your head right now, and I want to hear it. And here is where I need to be even more direct because somebody has to. What Claressa Shields needs right now is not another Papoose post. What Claressa Shields needs is a full-scale reset. A public apology to Laila Ali. A social media detox. A rebrand of the entire relationship narrative. A distancing from Wynn Records as her primary business identity. A publicist who will actually tell her no. A camp that will actually push back on the reaching. A quiet year where the only public statement she makes is inside the ropes. That is the reset. That is the roadmap. That is exactly how every fighter in boxing history who ever lost the public and won them back did it. Ask Mike Tyson. Ask Floyd Mayweather. Ask Deontay Wilder. Every single one of them had a bad public patch, and every single one of them fixed it by going quiet, going back to the gym, and letting the fists do all the future talking. Claressa Shields could do the exact same thing tomorrow morning. But right now, she is doing the opposite. And every day she picks the opposite is another day the crown slides a little further off her head. Now here is where I need your voice on the record. Was Dineva right, or did he go too far? Team boxing is her only crown, or team leave her alone? Did Papoose help her, or did he drag her deeper into the fire? Was Cris Cyborg out of pocket for the duck hunting season line? Or did she just say what everybody in combat sports has been thinking for 2 years? Because at the end of the day, none of the drag, none of the awards, none of the noise on the timeline is going to unbolt those 2 Olympic gold medals from around her neck. Those belong to Claressa Shields forever. Nobody takes those. Not Dineva. Not Cris Cyborg. Not the algorithm. Not the entire timeline stitched together. Nobody. But here is the follow-up question that is going to stay open, the one I am not answering in this video because I want you to answer it. If Claressa Shields sat down tomorrow and read every single thing the internet has been saying about her, would she change? Would she quiet down, focus on the ring, drop the reaching for other people's lanes, and reclaim the crown that already belongs to her? Or would she double down, dig in, and burn even more bridges on the way to whatever version of herself she thinks she is chasing? I have my prediction, but I want yours first. Drop it in the comments. And be honest. Do not sugarcoat it. Because the internet has already stopped sugarcoating anything about the situation, and if the audience is telling you the truth this loudly, at some point the athlete has to listen. And listen, one more thing before we wrap. Because there is a version of this whole story where Claressa Shields comes out on top. There is a version where the next fight camp is the greatest of her career. There is a version where she walks into the ring in front of a sold-out arena, defends her belts one more time, and the entire commentary universe, including this one, has to rewrite every take we have been shipping about her for the last 2 years. That version is on the table. That version is possible. Boxing is the one sport that has a redemption arc built directly into its DNA. Every great fighter in the history of the sport has had a moment when the world turned on them, and every great fighter had the option to answer with their fists. Claressa Shields still has that option. The bell has not rung on that chapter yet. The question is whether she wants to answer it in the ring, or whether she wants to keep answering it on Instagram. Because those are 2 completely different careers, and the world is watching to see which one she picks. Alright, with all that on the table, let me know your full thoughts. What did you think about Dineva's read on Claressa Shields? What did you think about Papoose's post that started the whole avalanche? Do you agree the mistress narrative is going to follow her forever? Or do you think she can outrun it if she wins enough fights? Do you think Papoose is helping her or hurting her? Do you think Wynn Records is holding her back or lifting her up? Do you think Cris Cyborg's duck hunting season quote crossed the line? Or was it a fair shot from a fellow fighter? Every question is on the table. Every take is welcome. Let me know your temperature down below, and I will read as many comments as I can. And if you have somebody in your corner right now that is defending you the way Papoose defended Claressa Shields, tag them in the comments too, because sometimes the loudest defense from the wrong person is the exact thing that lights the whole fire. And also, real quick, if you want the full breakdown of what happened at the BET Awards, what Aya Wilson said in response, what Laila Ali has quietly been doing behind the scenes while all of this plays out, and the full receipts on the Wynn Records situation, I already have that video ready for you. It is going to be up on my end screen right now. Click it, watch it, and come back and tell me if I called it correctly. Because this story is not over. This story is a rolling avalanche. And every single week for the next month, another shoe is going to drop, another quote is going to leak, another creator is going to weigh in, and the temperature is only going to rise. So subscribe, ring the bell, and lock in with me for every next chapter, because we are going to cover every one of them together. And listen, if you made it all the way to this point in the video, you are locked in with me, and I appreciate every single one of you. Leave a like if you have not already. Subscribe if you are new around here. Ring the bell so you catch every drop. And whatever you do, do not let the noise on the timeline convince you that a two-time Olympic gold medalist is anything less than that. Because when the drag dies down, when the memes stop, when the hot takes cool off, Claressa Shields will still be one of the greatest boxers alive. The only question is whether Claressa Shields lets the internet decide her legacy, or whether Claressa Shields walks into that ring one more time and reminds the world what a real crown looks like. Pick your suggested video on the end screen. I will see you in the next one.